Hello everyone. Stylistically speaking, today's video is going to be a little bit different. We get lots of requests for topics about which there is little to no information. Specifically, for Darksiders, we have several of them that are requested rather often. So today we're doing a sort of Ultimate Assorted lore video. We're going to go over every request we have about smaller subjects for which we have any kind of answer. Please note that we did cut out a few requests, such as what information do we have on Monster X, because the answer is literally just, well, here's the stat block, Or requests with similar answers of, we honestly know only what we've seen on screen. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
Alright, so first up, Yeli Koropkin asks about the Ivory Citadel. The Ivory Citadel was originally the garrison that acted as the central hub for the angelic outpost in the realm of Lost Light. Like any good military force, the Angels maintain various outposts across the realms to better keep an eye on their enemies and, hopefully, assist their allies. The Ivory Citadel was one part military outpost and one part library. From the realm of Lost Light, the Archon Lucian scried through the realms, and his followers recorded his findings. Essentially, the Citadel was an angelic intelligence and reconnaissance base, repository for all of the information Lucian gleaned during his time there. But it was also simply a vast repository of general knowledge. According to the Abomination Vault novel, the White City, home of the Angels, holds a truly massive library. Allusions are made to legends of people being lost in its vast and winding stacks and taking centuries to find their way out. According to Azrael, the library in the Ivory Citadel was several times the size of the White City's library. Unfortunately, during Darksiders 2, we find that the Ivory Citadel, like so many things, had fallen to corruption thanks to the corruption of its leader, Archon Lucian, who slaughtered his allies as corruption drove him to madness, killing many of his brothers and sister angels and condemning most of the rest to succumbing to corruption as well. Resultantly, the Ivory Citadel we see in-game is but a shadow of its former glory.
Fabian Bulau asks why the Angels of the Hellguard are denied reinforcements when we encounter them in both Darksiders 1 and 2. The Hellguard were Abaddon's legion, said to be elite among the angel armies, and they worked directly under him. As such, when Abaddon led them to war with the demons on Earth, they of course followed. However, in the aftermath of the apocalypse on Earth, even though the blame was falsely placed on War's shoulders, the fact remained that creation at large was made aware of the fact that Abaddon rushed in where he had no legal call to do so. He had broken the peace treaty between heaven and hell, and not only that, he had lost. As such, Abaddon and all of his Hellguard were essentially branded as criminals. Uriel and the others that survived the apocalypse were barred from returning home, and because they were fighting a war that shouldn't ever legally have happened, in fact, Abaddon had requested leave to fight such wars from the Angels before and been denied, they also were not getting reinforcements. They had broken several laws, and the Angels' judgment was that they should be left to their own devices. Though it is implied at the end of Darksiders 1 that, with Abaddon dead, the Hellguard may have cleared their name and thus be allowed to return home.
Andre Chuck and Garen Arthi ask, what's with Darksiders humans? Why do they matter to the story? Humanity was dubbed the Third Kingdom, with the Angels of Heaven being the first and the Demons of Hell being the second. As one might guess by their title, the race of humanity was the youngest of the three. According to what we as a player base have been shown, the greatest series of events that have shaped the cosmos in the Darksiders universe have been the ongoing battles between heaven and hell. When mankind was created, it was determined that humanity would one day rise to stand on equal footing with the kingdoms of heaven and hell. So, to ensure that humanity's long-term evolution was secure, the Charred Council, arbiters of the balance, forced heaven and hell into a peace treaty until such time as humanity had grown to stand on equal footing with the other two kingdoms. The mandate being that once humans had reached that stage of evolution, the peace treaty would be considered void, and war to determine the balance and fate of creation would be waged.
However, over time, it was discovered that humanity had the not at all actually unique, looking at you fallen/evil angels, to start with, but apparently considered to be unique trait of carrying both the capacity for good and evil, light and dark, chaos and order within themselves. As a species, they could go any which way, making them both unpredictable and all but incarnations of the very balance that groups like the Charred Council were supposed to uphold. This made some factions of creation nervous, the Charred Council included, and quietly certain parties began plotting humanity's downfall. Which is why, when Abaddon botched his attempt to kill Hell's leaders, and instead mostly just got humanity brought to the brink of extinction, few lifted a finger, and some actually helped push things towards humanity's extinction. What's more, the Horseman War was blamed for it, in a weirdly handled play by the Charred Council, to see that Abaddon and his conspirators were punished for breaking their laws, and maybe as a bonus get war killed in the process.
Dark Nephilim, Brandon Gary, and the Remnant Void ask about the Crucible and Serpent holes. The Crucible is a massive challenge of skill and steel that is offered as a test of strength only to the most deadly and powerful warriors in all of creation. It cannot truly be called a tournament, as it is simply a collection of increasingly powerful monsters and challenges set against a single aspiring warrior. However, it is a grueling task, and, in game terms, it comes with fantastic rewards. In Darksiders 2, Death can acquire several pieces of gear, most notably 2 pieces of his Abyssal Armor set. In Darksiders 3, it was the first and only repeatable method of acquiring Wicked Adamantine, without beating the game and New Game Plussing, which is required for the most powerful equipment upgrades in the game. Little is known of the Crucible beyond this, except for 4 facts. 1. The Crucible is owned and possibly managed by Wicked Killington, a sentient and powerful being that appears to be a very unique specimen of Wicked, basically magic zombie. 2. There are at least 2 Crucibles that we know of, and possibly more. 3. Each of the Crucibles is run by a seeming construct. The 2 that we are aware of are apparently brothers, each of which are sentient as well as being powerful warriors, as they are the only beings prior to the arrival of their game's respective horsemen with the power and skill to complete the challenges of their respective Crucibles.
The Serpent holes are methods of fast travel that are seen primarily on Earth in the games, but which, thanks to both Vulgrim and the comics, we know span the reaches of the cosmos. We also know that they seem to occupy some sort of extra-dimensional space, formed mostly of runic bridges that assemble as you walk, and other stone structures floating in an endless sea of cloudy nothingness. In the comics, it's said that the Serpent holes sometimes try to take the memories of travelers, but this is never shown anywhere in any of the games. Though it could be a tongue-in-cheek answer for why, especially in later games, using Serpent holes is simply a loading screen rather than something you have to physically walk. You just forgot the trip. We don't know if they were originally native to the Serpent holes, but at one time, at least one region of the Serpent holes were home to a race of stone creatures, the Keepers of the Void. But Vulgrim tricked Fury into slaughtering their species wholesale, which she was quite unhappy about when she learned she'd been duped.
Derpy Sound and Benny Gatink ask about the Maker constructs known as Wardens. The Makers are the Darksiders version of fantasy dwarves, though instead of being short, they are, on average, twice the size of the various horsemen. A unique fact about the Makers is that, unlike all other known creatures in the Darksiders universe, which has a reincarnation cycle, the Maker's souls do not pass through the cycle of reincarnation. So, instead, when a Maker dies, their soul is bound into a heartstone and then used to bring life to one of a number of constructs. Most commonly, the Wardens. Wardens are, several times again, larger than their original Maker selves. Sometimes a Warden can remember its former life, though not always. It's also implied that when a Warden rests, its dreams are in fact based upon the memories of their former life. Wardens are clearly powerful and durable, being giant stone constructs, but any other abilities they might possess are a mystery. Though at least one of them has limbs that can animate and function on their own. However, we do know that as part of the Charred Council's pact, when the final war of Armageddon was to be fought, the Makers were to send all of their Wardens to be part of that battle. As such, when Abaddon started things prematurely, the vast majority of Wardens were sent away from the Maker's home in the Forge Lands, which would ultimately cause them trouble later. In the aftermath of the apocalypse, many of the Wardens were enslaved and made to act as doors/walls/guardians by their demon overlords.
Eric Smith and Andre Chuck ask about the Mad Smith. The Mad Smith is a maker, a truly gifted craftsman who specifically did a lot of work for the Charred Council, as it was he who crafted each of the Horseman's Abyssal Armor sets, as well as Fury's favorite weapon, the form-shifting weapon Scorn. He is also known to have been the creator of the Grim Talisman found by Death in Darksiders 2, and most notably, he crafted the Abyssal Forge. The Mad Smith seemed to have a predilection for crafting things tied to or using the power of the Abyss, something generally considered both dangerous and unwise. But it was his final masterpiece, the Abyssal Forge, that brought him the most trouble. The Abyssal Forge was a sentient construct that drew power directly from the Abyss and could forge more constructs, which could then forge more Abyssal Forges, the cycle continuing theoretically indefinitely. However, the Abyssal Forge's ties to the Abyss drove it mad, and it went full insane robot, planning to make armies of constructs that would seed every world in creation with more Abyssal Forges until they had conquered everything. The makers didn't like that, and chose to lock the Mad Smith and his Abyssal Forge away in a little dimensional pocket. While there, the Forge continued to churn out constructs, planning for the day it became free, and the Mad Smith had time to contemplate. He even attempted to destroy the Abyssal Forge himself, but failed. So, after millennia of imprisonment, when death arrived, signaling the breaking of the seal in their prison, the Mad Smith enlisted the Horseman's aid in destroying his creation lest it conquer all of the rest of creation. When death succeeded, he asked for death to destroy him as well, but the Horseman declined, leaving the Smith to his madness. Some of the Mad Smith's parting words being, worryingly, that he was going to start work on his next masterpiece.
Wayne Julian asks about the Armageddon Blade. The Armageddon Blade was a masterpiece forged by Ulthane the Black Hammer, one of the most skilled makers to whom we, the audience, have been exposed. It seems unlikely that it was created for this purpose, but we know that it is a weapon of incredible power, as it was able to break the seals of the Apocalypse as part of Abaddon's botched plan. After the seals were broken, the blade was broken into several pieces and scattered around Earth with the intention of ensuring that no one ever discovered their plot. Why the pieces weren't scattered around all of creation rather than just around Earth, we don't know. However, Ulthane himself reforged the weapon once War found all of the pieces, as the Armageddon Blade was the only weapon capable of harming Abaddon while he was hopped up on power gained from tapping into the Well of Souls, the hub for the Darksiders reincarnation cycle. Whether this means that it was the only weapon in creation capable of doing so, or merely the only weapon that War and Company had access to that was capable of doing the job, is unknown. But either way, it is an immensely potent sword.
Javier Zaragoza and Saul ask about the Keeper of Oblivion and Oblivion itself. In the Abomination Vault novel, we are introduced to the concept of Oblivion. Oblivion is a nothingness that is presumed to be dimensionally adjacent to the rest of creation. We say nothingness because Oblivion is just that. It is the absence of all things, or perhaps even more specifically, the antithesis of all things. It's described not as being the absence of sound or light, but rather being anti-sound, anti-light. The same goes for all other aspects of reality, anti-life, for example. Anything or anyone tossed into Oblivion is either destroyed or so profoundly lost and separated from reality that it's effectively the same thing. And the only known portal to Oblivion in all of creation is controlled by the Charred Council and watched over by the Keeper of Oblivion. Though his race is never stated, it's been pointed out to us that most details around him point towards his being a maker, inferring the possibility that he made the portal to Oblivion himself. Tall, broad-shouldered, and gaunt to an emaciated degree, and keep in mind that he is described with this quasi-sickly appearance on the same page where the horseman Death is mentioned, so he must look just a hair's breadth from death at all times. He also wears a featureless metal mask, adorned only with 2 slits for eyes, and scoring running down from those slits to make it seem as if he is perpetually shedding tears. He is the Council's executioner. In a reality where reincarnation is a known fact of life, the Charred Council delivers to the Keeper of Oblivion those criminals or objects deemed so irredeemably threatening to the balance that they must be removed from the equation entirely. He does so without question, trusting in the justice of the Charred Council, because he's aware that if they were ever wrong, his sanity would have to contend with the fact that he has rendered his charges to a state of pure nothingness, possibly wrongfully, a possibility he is not at all certain he could face.
Finally, Lodril High, Lucifer Morgenster, SLR 409, and Gods Alchemic ask about the Tempest. The Tempest is a massive tornado encountered in Darksiders 3. Little is known about it, and by little we mean next to nothing. We do know that either it is a sentient creature of some sort on its own, or was being generated by one, or is a prison for one. We also know that Fury's Watcher, spoilers, actually Envy, is aware of what it is, or at least thinks she does, as she is the one who gives us the Tempest's name and makes it very clear to Fury that she cannot fight it when it is first encountered. Much of anything else about the creature is left purposefully vague. Maybe we'll see more Tempests in the future, or maybe it's just meant to make us wonder. In the game, the Watcher tells us that the Tempest is not part of their mission, and so doesn't matter, inferring that she knows what it actually is, but never says. And later when Fury kills it by drawing it into a burning oil pool and lighting it on fire, she hears an echoing voice tell her, "Thank you," as the tornado dies, as if whatever the Tempest was had been set free. It's worth noting that we found this piece of information from one of the developers, a snippet from a scrapped conversation between Fury and the Watcher concerning the Tempest that indicates it is some sort of radioactive thing that might have been souped up by the events of the apocalypse. But that was a scrapped conversation, and as such should be considered with a heavy, maker-sized grain of salt.
And that's our ultimate assorted Darksiders lore. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like all of these wonderful people, and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.